Very lucky to be asked to tell you a little bit more about my story, and hopefully you will come up with some really cool biographies based on the information I give you. So here goes. As I said, my name is Ryan Raghoo. My date of birth, where I was born on the 20th of July 1996 at St George's Hospital in Tooting. I currently live in Aylesbury, which is in Buckinghamshire. My educational background, I went to St James the Great Primary School, and my secondary school, I went to the London Oratory School in Fulham. I studied my degree of anthropology at Brunel University between 2015 and 2021. So I spent quite a long time doing my degree because I was very busy doing sport and I had to take time out for different personal reasons. But I did manage to complete it and I achieved a 2-1 with honours, which I'm very proud of. My area of expertise is disability and sport. So, as you all know, I was born with cerebral palsy. My cerebral palsy was caused by mistakes made by the doctors, which left me with brain damage. Growing up, it was quite challenging. I had to learn how to do everything from scratch, and things took me a lot longer to learn. I found a lot of things very difficult. We were told as a family that I'd never walk, so that was our main goal growing up, was to teach me how to walk, teach me how to be more independent, so that I'd be able to look after myself one day and live life to the fullest. If you remember in the assembly, I told you that I didn't like sports at all when I was growing up, and in fact, sports day at school was the worst day of the year for me. It was the worst day of the year for me because in primary school everybody had to race, and I was the only kid with a disability, so I always came last. So I really didn't like sport in primary school. The other thing about primary school was I didn't spend a lot of time there. I ended up missing quite a bit of time off with different hospital appointments and going to see lots of different specialists. A key bit of information about me, I went to Great Ormond Street Hospital, which is a specialist children's hospital, and it was there that we were given the diagnosis of my condition, cerebral palsy. My cerebral palsy affects my legs, and it affects my arms, and it affects my head. But my legs are worse than my upper body, and the left side of my arm, the left side of my body is worse than the right side of my body, with my left arm being the most severe limb. So how does my condition affect me? Well, I've got something called muscle spasms. And if you can see, my hands are kind of shaking around. So my body is in muscle spasms pretty much from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to sleep, and quite a lot of time whilst I'm trying to sleep, which keeps me awake, which isn't so fun. Now, the thing with muscle spasms is because your body's moving, you're using energy. So I get tired quite quickly. Another interesting thing is that eating food is quite challenging for me. My face is affected by the cerebral palsy, which means that chewing food is quite difficult. It takes a lot of energy. So I sometimes get quite tired from eating food. It might surprise you to know that it takes me over an hour to eat most meals. And when I was growing up, because I'm a little bit older than you, this is before blenders and stuff. When I was really small, my parents had to chew the food first and then feed it to me. And I had to have lots of liquid meals and things like that. There was also lots of foods that we used to avoid because they were difficult to eat. Now I'm able to eat most things, but I still avoid foods like steaks because they're tougher to chew. The other thing is, when I'm eating, I like to eat with a bowl rather than a plate, and I tend to use a spoon rather than a knife and fork because I can use one hand with the spoon and one hand to hold the bowl. And the thing with the bowl is you can't lose food off the side of the plate, which I often do. Thinking about secondary school, I really didn't enjoy my time in secondary school because my school excluded me from sport. So for 5 years, I wasn't allowed to do any sport in school, which led to me getting bullied throughout my time at secondary school because I was different, because I was the odd one out. I was the kid that didn't do sport. I told you about my university, but I didn't tell you about my college. So I left my school to go and do A levels in my hometown of Croydon. And at college, I studied business, economics, law, and English literature. Now, whilst I was at college, I also got heavily involved in UNICEF, which hopefully you'll all know about. But if you don't, then do some research. And as part of my work with UNICEF, we used to campaign about climate change, equal rights for girls in schools abroad, and lots of different interesting things. And I was very lucky that I became the president of the UNICEF group at my college. Whilst I was doing that, I also became the president of the whole college. So all of a sudden, I was now kind of like the head boy, but for a few thousand people. And as part of this role, I would have meetings with different student groups to find out what their challenges were. I'd help with student activities, and then I'd also meet with the principal, who's the head teacher, and stuff like that. So that was quite interesting. Now, my time at university at Brunel, I was there for quite a long time. I lived on campus. I also met my girlfriend there, who I've been with now for 5 years. So university was very good for me. I started my career in sports there, and that allowed me to go and travel the world. I think from memory, I've been to over 17 or maybe 19 countries, which I sometimes forget. And as an athlete, I was very lucky. I became the British record holder in my event. I've won the World Games twice. My highest ranking was to become number 9 in the world. So that's kind of my career in sport in a really small snapshot. Nowadays, this keeps me very busy. Enabled Not Disabled, which I started in 2015. And the reason why I started this was to change the way that we talk about disability and to change the way that we think about disability. I think it's important that young people like you learn more so that you understand there are different people. And nowadays, I spend my time traveling to different schools and delivering workshops in schools, but also working with teachers on how can they make the classroom a better place for young people with disabilities. I'm also very passionate about bullying and do a lot of work on anti-bullying. And then I also sometimes teach at universities, working with people that are going to become teachers or who are going to become physios and giving them a better understanding of disability. So my work life is very varied. One day I might be doing something in a school, the next day I might be speaking at an international conference, which is another area of my life that I need to mention. I spend a lot of time talking. The biggest talks have involved a TEDx talk, which you can find on YouTube. And I think to date I've spoken to over 60,000 people. So that's a lot of people. So that's my short biography. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about me.